Just setting up here. Let me go ahead and do this. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy you guys are joining me in today. So, as you can see, I've tried to prep my hair before we get started. And I don't know that this is working out too well, because what I'm trying to do is use another computer to get a better angle. So, as you guys know, hey Janelle, hi Adeli. We're going to have a guest joining us soon. David Mizrahi. He's actually a mortgage banker that I work with. And he's going to be talking to us about mortgages for the medical profession. So if you have any girlfriends or friends that are nurses, doctors, tell them to join in too. So that way they can find out about this special loan that's for the medical profession. I may have to change this around soon. Yeah. Ayo, how you doing? You're in, or Verizon got you going to work every day? So today I'm gonna start doing my makeup. I'm actually gonna do a very natural glam kind of look too. So while I'm doing my makeup, you guys can ask questions and all that jazz. So I don't distract David too much. I'm gonna tell you guys which products I'm gonna use from the beginning. So as you know, I always use my NYX setting spray. And today I'm gonna do a natural glam palette from the Gingerbread Extra Spicy collection. And my go-to foundation is going to be the Maybelline Fit Me. And, you know, I gotta glimmer a little because it's been so gloomy all these days that we've been stuck inside. I watch outside every day and it's just like so gray. I'm starting to think, I wonder if it's my window. Hey Lexi, thanks for joining. Did you get off the bed today? Or you like still working in PJs? Yes, that illuminated is great. What else am I gonna put? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like thinking about the look right here. Primer. I'm gonna keep it simple because I'm not gonna do too much. So, have you guys worked out today? Or we just waking up? Am I the only one? I did day 2 of Jillian Michaels' workout video, and then I did like 6 laps of the steps. Imagine I live on the 6th floor, so I was going from the 8th floor, well, the roof, down to the 6th floor, and I missed my flight, so I ended up doing an extra lap. I feel like I'm gonna have to switch this camera around because I really can't see what's going on. Pardon me, one moment. Okay, here we go. Ooh, who's my Virgo up in here? Oh, here we go. So David is joining us. Oh my gosh. David,
Hello.
where are you going? We're supposed to be inside.
I'm in my car in my driveway. I have 3 kids
So
inside,
that's what happened.
and they're in their Zoom classes with their
I just
teachers.
realized that y'all probably aren't even hearing me clearly because I was working out earlier and my Bluetooth is still connected to the phone.
Oh, much better, by the way.
Oh, there
Do you
we
hear
go.
me well?
Yes, I do. Lexi, I hope you feel better. You take anything for that migraine? I don't do drugs, so I couldn't give you any recommendations to help. Yeah, David, so I already gave all the makeup spiel on the products that I'm going to be using, so I'm just going to go ahead and do my makeup while we go ahead and chit chat, right? So I don't know if I explained this whole like faces of real estate concept to you. So what people get in the habit of doing is just like, we got to work from home, so we don't really get up and get dressed. We just kind of like, just kind of work as is. But I see you're fully
Right.
booked. So what I've decided to do is every morning I'm gonna keep my regular routine. So this is for now my new normal, right? So I normally wake up, go to the gym, do my makeup, go to work. So I'm doing it from home, and because my girlfriends, I've been checking on everybody. By the way, like I kind of had to take a break. It was being too much going from my phone book from Z to A, and a lot of people like I just felt so sad because they were struggling to like. I know being indoors, like you look outside, and you just feel so sad, and mental health is definitely like a big thing. So I wanted to kind of cheer people up, inspire people. And what is going on?
I don't know. I'm hit the wrong button. I'm trying to. Hold on. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Oh look, Janelle said, "Hey, David." Yeah, just the basics. There we go. Yeah. So okay.
Sorry.
So the whole thing is like to just inspire people, keep people motivated while we go through this whole Corona thing, and share information in a fun, appealing way. So my platform's probably gonna appeal to a lot of women who are into beauty, and hopefully I don't run out of makeup before all of this blows over.
Do you see me well?
Yes,
Is my
I do.
steering wheel in? Okay, good.
No, I see all of you.
Okay.
So guys, today we're going to be talking about mortgages, and like I mentioned, if you have a friend that's in a medical profession, check up on them, and then also let them know that we have a special product just for them. So normally when you buy a house, most first-time home buyers, they buy with a FHA 2 or 3K loan, right? And that's the loan that actually gives you the least amount of down payment, but this loan is a little bit different. So instead of putting 3.5% down, how much is the down payment, David?
Well, there's some programs with 0% for physicians and doctors and nurses. I mean, there's a variety of programs. I mean, you have in regards to a lot of times I noticed that most people. I'm sorry about this. Is also
I'm getting distracted by my makeup.
okay, I think that's good. Okay, perfect. So a lot of times I notice a lot of nurses and doctors also veterans, and they could also apply for a VA program, which is another great program.
Yeah,
You know,
Lexi's a VA. She's on here too.
all right. So I'll go into just basically what qualifies someone to purchase a property, and also just the different, different products that are out there that people could take advantage of in today's market. So
Okay.
one of the, so I always tell everyone, in order to qualify for a mortgage, you should always remember the CIA. I do a lot of speaking events, and I go to the NYPD a lot of times, and I say, you guys are the NYPD, I'm the CIA. Now, not only do I have everyone's attention, but I also could basically break everything down to them in a way that everyone could understand and simplify it. So
Mm-hmm.
C stands for credit, I stands for income, A stands for assets. Those are the three things you need in order to qualify for a mortgage. So let's just start with the C.
Okay.
Credit scores. So you need certain type of credit scores, and every program has different credit requirements. Some programs will go down to 620. A lot of banks right now are lifting their credit score requirements to 640, 660. Some of them I even heard up to 680. So that's one thing. And then also in regards to the actual payment history inside of the credit. So I always get a lot of questions, what's the best percentage you should owe on your credit cards to obtain the best credit score?
Okay.
And that answer would be 30%. I would
So
say
let me
always try to
ask
be
you.
under. Yeah.
Sorry, not to cut you. For the
No, no, no,
medical
no.
loan program, what is the base point or the starting point for the credit for that program?
700s. Now,
700. Okay.
correct. And
Do
that
you find that
program
a
comes.
lot of doctors, because they have like all that medical debt, like it takes them a while to get to the 700 because of the student loans?
So that is a great question. Student loan is pretty much one of the biggest reasons why a lot of doctors' credit scores are a little bit low. And mostly, for most people, not even doctors, I see it from all over where someone thinks they're in a forbearance or a deferment plan, and all of a sudden they're 60 days, 90 days late without even knowing when I run their
Oh my
credit.
goodness. That happened to one of my clients recently. She's a nurse. And she's like, I called in and told them this. I was looking at her credit report. And they're like, oh, no, you called in, but we didn't put it on forbearance. And she was like 90 days late. Like, we had to, like, kind of help her backtrack it. Fortunately, they were able to actually defer it to where she didn't owe any money. And they did it back to when she had originally called, which was months before. So that actually came off her credit report
Right.
afterwards.
And always make sure if they do anything for you, get it in writing. Always ask for it in writing.
Oh, yeah,
You
I would
know,
tell people that.
it's really important because I've seen so many times, like even in today's world right now, where people are having issues with their mortgage payments, and they're calling their banks to ask for to extend this payment into to the next, or whatever the case they may be offering. I always tell everyone, get it in writing, because sometimes you hear someone that's been offered something from one representative, and that representative made a mistake, and
Mm-hmm.
it put them in a bad situation, which is horrible.
Yeah, actually,
So
right now with this whole thing that we're going through, I've been hearing that people with mortgages are able to get like deferments and stuff. Is that like a standard thing, or is that like case by case from every bank?
it's case by case. It's
Okay,
case by case. Every bank has their own rules. Some banks are basically saying, we'll do it for you and we'll put it on the back end. From what I hear, it seems like a lot of banks are saying, okay, if you're going to take advantage and not have any payments over the next 3 months, then basically, so that means you skip April, May, June. But in July, now you owe for April, May, June, and July.
I mean, pay
So
it now,
that
pay
is
it later.
very
You still gotta
difficult.
pay it.
You always got to pay it generally, but it depends on where they're going to make you pay it, and that's the real big thing, because a lot of people right now are having problems and struggling, and totally I understand that.
Yeah.
And but I always tell everyone, if you're able to pay it, because I always hear, like one of my clients called me, and I was speaking with them, and they're making their income hasn't changed since all this. They're working overtime, and basically they asked me if I should skip my payment. And I said, why would you need to if you're able to afford the payment? And he said, well, just because I could take advantage of it. And you can, but it could get you into trouble, and the
Like,
risk
this is the
reward
problem with
really isn't there.
society. People want to do stuff
Well,
just because they can, but it's like, if you don't need to, like, save it for somebody else that actually needs like that type of assistance.
yeah, but at the end, if you don't need it, I mean, you just don't need to go into payment. There's almost nothing good that could come out of it for you. If you could, if you have 100%,
Right.
you could make the payment right now. There's just really no benefit at the end. You'll always end up losing regardless. Maybe they'll put it on the back end, but you're gonna owe more interest. You'll owe something. So yeah, good question. Now, in regards, and if anyone has any questions, I mean, you could put it on the screen, and we'll answer the question for you. Sorry, I'm scrolling through just in case.
Yeah.
So feel free to just chime in and ask questions, because I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that anyone has. So in regards to income now, so now we understand, what kind of credit scores and everything. Now with income, banks look at your total income. If you have a cosigner, you could add all the income in. A lot of times I get a question, if I have a cosigner and they make $100,000 a year, do I automatically qualify? And the answer is possibly, but it's not automatic, because that person that's co-signing for you, they need to not only qualify for their own debt, but they also have to qualify for the leftover debt that you have. So for argument's
Right.
sake, let's just say you have a person that makes about $120,000 a year. Now, the banks take that and break it into monthly. So 120,000 divided by 12 months in a year is 10,000 a month. Now, let's just say they have a mortgage payment of 3,500, a car payment of 500, student loan debt of 500 per month. And remember, it doesn't go off of the balance; it goes off of the actual monthly payment. So if you owe $4,000 on a credit card, it sounds like a lot of money, but in regards to the mortgage the payment might only be $150 a month. So that's what we're counting towards your debt to income
Right.
ratios, which is the DTI that you always hear. DTI stands for debt to income ratios. So you'll take that 35, 5, and 5, and now you'll have 4,500 in total debt. And divide that into the
Hey,
income,
Ish.
now you have 45%. So that was
David.
something, yes.
Mm-hmm. No, sorry, not you. There was another David I was saying
Oh.
hi.
So that is something that you have to put into account. So, but let's just say, one of my clients called me just on Friday, and they said, I fell in love with a home. I want to purchase it. It's in New Jersey. I'm going to sign the contract, but I just wanted to let you know, they had a cosigner, but unfortunately they don't want to cosign right now. So they spoke with a different family member. And once I spoke with the other family member, and this family member, the first family member that we were using, made $90,000 a year. So
Okay.
very strong income. The second family member that we ended up using makes $38,000, say $40,000 almost per year. So pretty much less than half of the income. But that family member lives at home with their family, has no rent, no mortgage payments, has a car for $300 a month, and very little debt. So now that $38,000, $40,000 a year, that a little over $3,000 a month, is a lot stronger than the $7,500 per month, because the person that was co-signing before had $1,500 rent and things like that that you had to put into account. So basically, the banks are going to use just basically your income, depending on if you're self-employed, depending on if you're a wage earner or commission-based. There's all different calculations of how they use it. Sometimes they'll use an average over the last couple of years. Sometimes if it's a base salary, they'll give you credit for all of it. I have a client right now that went from 80 something thousand a year to a little over 100,000 a year. And she just got the pay increase last week. And even though she just got it, I'm able to give her credit for the entire salary increase that she received right away, just by using a pay stub and a verification of employment. Now, the last is the A, which is the assets, which is the money someone needs for the down payment and the closing cost. And I always like to tell everyone it's always good to have reserves. Even though some programs don't require you to have any money left over, for me, I always tell everyone it's great to have it, just because, God forbid, something happens, just like we're going through right now.
Need rainy day money.
Exactly. But, sometimes easier said than done. But I always tell everyone, budget for it, because you never know, even things that you can never even think about, like we're going through right now, happen. Family issues, health issues, the house needs money, you need money, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So basically, now there's all different programs. Now there's programs like we were talking about with the, physician loan, with the VA program, with 0% down.
How does somebody qualify for the medical one?
So basically, they're looking. You have to be in the healthcare industry, and they're going to be looking at. It depends on how you're getting paid. So if you're a salary employee, and then you get, and let's just say you're a nurse and you make $100,000 a year, for argument's sake, and then you work overtime, which pretty much almost everyone does, in that field. And let's just say, for argument's sake, in 2018, you made $20,000 in overtime, and in 2019, you made $40,000, for argument's sake, in overtime. Now, the banks are going to take those 2 years, add them up, and divide it by 2. So 20 plus 40, 60, and then 60 divided by 2 years is 30. So if your base salary is 100 and your overtime is 30, your average is 30, your income that the banks will give you credit for is $13,000, $130,000 a year. So that's pretty much how you would be looking at qualifications and everything like that. Now, in regards to how someone qualifies, it all depends. I usually tell everyone you pretty much qualify for anywhere between, depending on your debt, anywhere between 4 and 6 times what you make per year. The more the debt that you have, the less time, the less that number is. So, and that all depends on everything like that. So, and also it depends on taxes and other part of the equations. So those are, and those are great benefits. Those are great programs that everyone could use. Now, I always tell everyone, especially in today's market, right now, obviously in New York, you're not really looking at homes unless you're doing them virtually on a virtual tour.
Oh, actually, they changed that. So, like Thursday last week, they sent out a memorandum that we can actually start showing again. So what happens now is, like, the listing agent shouldn't be there because, your client is the seller, they're not the one buying. So basically, they just want the people who are buying to be the ones that are going on appointments.
Perfect.
So
that's
a
great
lot of
news.
people actually don't know that still, but the boards and the MLSs have been sending out emails, and then we do have like a bulletin board for our MLS association, so that keeps us updated on all the changes. So what I've been doing is just trying to like pretty much schedule the ones that are empty, so that way I don't have to worry about inconveniencing the seller and stuff. Because then people are like, oh, they want people in their space and all this other stuff. Right. And it's like we're just trying to work around it as best as we can. But yeah, we can show again.
All right, that's great. So, right now, in my opinion, is going to, the rates are low. You don't have the biggest reason why prices go up in value is really just because of the bidding wars. And so right now you're not going to have a ton of buyers out there like you did 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. So, I always tell all buyers, even if you haven't found the home that you fell in love with, and you haven't really been totally in the market, but you're about to dive in, you should always go and start the process in regards to at least getting pre-approved, and just going through those steps. So A, you can know exactly where you're going to qualify for in regards to prices. B, you get to know what the mortgage payments are going to be for those prices, because that's the most important to me. I always hear all the time where somebody goes and, a perfect example. I had a client came into my office. He works with JFK, and he was
Mm-hmm.
pre-approved by another bank. Doesn't matter the name. And and one of his coworkers ended up purchasing a home. He said, you got to call this guy Dave. And he got it off of work early, and he came and he called me up. He said, just out of curiosity, are you in your office? I said, yeah. He jumped on the belt. He came into Brooklyn. He came in to meet with me. And all of a sudden, I asked him, what is a mortgage payment you're comfortable with? And he told me, I can't go over 3,000. It's not comfortable for me. So after going over everything, I said, you definitely could qualify for a home for 500, 520. And then he
Oh,
told me,
sorry. Can we
um,
rewind a little? So he could qualify for 500 off of how much of an income?
I mean, he made actually 140,000 a year. So I told him,
Okay,
no problem, you can definitely qualify. And then what
got you.
happened was, when I told him 550, 525, he basically told me, I appreciate your time, and he said he had to go. And I asked him why. He said, because I already spoke with another lender who told me I can go up to a $650,000 home. And I told him, I said, Hector, just out of curiosity, his name was Hector. I said, if I told you a home for 650,000, I go, if I told you your mortgage payment was about 3,800, 4,000, would you be okay with that? He said, no, I just told you I want to be under three. So I said, so just because you get pre-approved for I could pre-approve you for 750,000, but at the end of the day, the mortgage payment is going to be more than what you could afford. So
Exactly.
I always tell everyone it's not really what you can go up to in regards to a purchase price. It's what you can go up to with affordability. And that's really the most important, because a lot of times, people have kids in private school, or they go on expensive vacations, or they live an expensive lifestyle. Or sometimes you have people with the exact opposite, where they don't
Mm-hmm.
have an expensive lifestyle, and their means are they really just want a home, and a lot of their income, they could put more income of their income towards the mortgage payment that they have. So there's a lot of different things that go into the equation, and every single
Thank you.
situation is different. And I always make sure, I always tell everyone, I speak to hundreds, if not thousands of people sometimes a week. And it doesn't matter if I spoke to a million people a week. It's irrelevant, because at the end of the day, every person has a different situation, and every
Right.
situation is very unique to that person. So I always like to go and figure out what fits for them, and is affordable for them, because one thing about what I look at is making sure that, I lived through the 2008 crash, and I've watched a lot of people lose their homes and have issues, and just because they overspent on a home, and someone told them that they could afford a certain amount of money, and they were just so excited that they found the home at that price, and they just ran with it without really, going over the dollars and cents and breaking everything
Yeah.
down for them. And I want to make sure that if there is an issue or something like that, people could afford their house, and that's because that's the number one investment of their life. It's the roof over their head. It's where their family lives. It's where they live. And at the end of the day, like, we're going through a crazy time right now, and where are people right now? Sheltered in their home.
Yeah.
And if someone could, and in today's market, like we said before, if there's an issue like in the world, in the government, in the United States, and they're not really, the banks are able to help people that own a home. They're not really able to help tenants, and that's really up to the landlord. The government might be able to tell them that here's the guidelines, you can't do anything in 90 days, but in 90 days they have a lot of
Back when
power
it's
to do
happening.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, it's a little bit more difficult. So if you're able to own a home, it's a great thing, and everyone should own a home. But it's always not about just owning a home. It's owning the right home with the right price
Right.
and the right
So you
and
would
with the
say
right
even
payment.
in today's market where like there's so many people panicking, like it's still good to move forward and buy a home because it's a lot more security for you as opposed to continue renting.
Well, yeah, and also, in my opinion, right now you're able to get a pretty good deal, because 30, 50 people looking at the same home. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot less competition out there, which will give you a better
Right.
chance. And then especially if we go with, my strategic way to submit an offer, and if you start the process early enough, you could use it, where instead of putting it in with a pre-approval, you could actually put it in with a DU, or, which is a desktop underwriting, or an LP, a loan prospector approval, which is basically the Fannie, Freddie, FHA, VA, automated approval engine. So when a seller sees a pre-approval and then they see someone that's not only pre-approved, but it's actually already approved, and the bank already reviewed everything, and they reviewed the tax returns, W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements, IDs, broke everything down, and actually gives you the approval with their address, their taxes, their everything, with your name on it, it gives you a better leg, gives you a better leg to stand on. And
Yeah.
also, it's the best offer they have, because what does every single person in this country have in common that got denied for a mortgage? They were all pre-approved.
Yeah.
So I try to stay away from pre-approvals and actually get all the documents, and I don't mind spending the extra time before they find a home, because at the end of the day, you're going to have to spend that time regardless once you find the home, and I'd rather do it up front. But B, if everyone knows everything up front, it's the fear of the unknown. Most people don't pull the trigger on things because they don't know what the outcome is going to be. They don't know where they're going to be. So I always tell everyone, let's go over everything up front. Let's go over
Yeah.
the type of down payments, the type of closing costs, the type of mortgage payments you'll be, with difference of taxes and things like that, so that they understand A, what they need to budget for right now, and B, what they need to budget for each month. And those are things that a lot of people just aren't so aware of, and they're just so focused on the price of the home. And that's why I try to bring it back and talk about, instead of the price, let's talk about the payment that you could afford, because that's what comes out of your pocket every month. It's like a
Yeah.
student loan. People could get a student loan for $100,000, but then they're on the annual income based payment approach, and that payment for them is maybe $400 a month on a $100,000 loan. So it's not about balances of things in the mortgage industry. It's about the monthly payments and things, and that's really what it's the most important thing to me is,
Yeah.
and I think should be for everyone, in my
And
opinion.
I agree with you there. Like when people come to me like, oh, I can buy this much, I go over the payments with them also, because what I've found in the past happened, and this is why I do it, is like you put an offer on a house, and then like people get scared to pull the trigger, and it's like, well, what's the issue? They're like, well, I don't know how much
Right,
it costs. And in my head, I'm like, well, when you got this pre-approval, like, didn't you sit down and speak to the loan officer?
it
But I
happens.
feel like people just forget everything. So at different points along the way, like I have to keep reminding them, like, okay, like, well, let's call the mortgage banker so that way you're comfortable with the numbers
Right,
all the way throughout. Because last you need to find a house as a realtor, you're like, I just want you to like sign on the
right,
contract.
right. Because
But
sometimes
you gotta care about the person's pockets too, because that's what they're concerned about.
right, you can't be transactional. You have to be relationship based, and
Exactly.
that's really why I always tell buyers they really should have a realtor to represent them, because they don't. This is the first time they're buying a home. One thing, I've been doing this for 19 years, right? And one thing that I've learned in the last 19 years is that every time I deal with a first-time home buyer, you could be the best doctor, you could be the best lawyer, you could be the best anything in the world, and the smartest of the smartest, or the most book smart or not. And basically, when you're going to buy a home, it's the first time you're ever going to be, involved in that. No one ever taught you how to purchase a home in college or high school or grad school or med school or law school. And that is, for me, is a shame, because it's the biggest investment in someone's life. They'll teach you everything in business school, but they won't teach you really the economics and the
Oh,
breakdown of things for a mortgage and a home, and the importance of it, and the tax write-offs and the tax benefits
there's a
and a
lot of
million
things
things.
that they just don't teach us. But at the same time, like I tell people,
But that's
like
why we have to
I
do
don't
it.
expect you to know it, because even if you bought a house before you bought two houses, like the rules in our industry change so much over time. So
That's
it's
a
really
great
like it's
point.
our job to keep up with those things to make sure that the clients we represent have the best information that's up to date by us staying up to date. But even with my license, like, so we have to do continuing education courses every 2 years. We have like 22 and a half credits that we have to complete. So we're by our requirements having to keep up anyways with the changes that go on.
Right. So, I couldn't agree
Hey,
more. And that's why I always say you have to, if God forbid you have a health issue, you go to a doctor, right? You got to go to the
yeah,
specialist. When you're purchasing a home, you need an attorney, you need a mortgage banker, you need a realtor. Because if you make a little bit of a mistake, and that mistake is, let's just say, 3%. That 3% on a $500,000 home costs you $15,000. A lot of people don't understand that a real estate commission for the majority of the time is already built into the commission of the sale of the home, and they're not even paying you. And then basically, a lot of times, which is important, I always tell clients they should really sign a broker fee agreement, a buyer agreement with the realtor, because then their fiduciary is to them, which it's always going to be
Yeah.
to them anyway. But at least they know that they have a legal document that says that I'm going to represent you, and
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of you. And that to me is important. Just like when you go to an attorney and you sign
Yeah,
a
they
retainer with
sign a
someone.
retainer. hmm Well,
Correct. It's
anytime
the
I meet
same
with a
concept.
client, like that's my initial consultation process is
Should
the
be.
state. So the state requires us to go over certain disclosures. So while we do
Right.
that, I do the exclusive agreement. And like, there's some people like they want to read it over and stuff. So I just give you kind of like the breakdown. And my office is virtual, so they get to e-sign everything, take the papers home with them. And I
Yep.
mean, as I explained it, like you go to a house, that person represents the seller. So who's going to protect your best interest when you're buying a house? And granted, like people like with all the changes and stuff like that, the sellers, they're not worried about the person buying the home. They're just concerned about what they're doing, what they're not doing, which is usually not always in the best interest of the person. But then if you have a realtor that can explain to you your options, then you're in a position to know like, okay, I can make this move and not have buyer's remorse later.
Correct. And that's important. And that's, the biggest, it's not like getting a credit card and you get the wrong credit card and you just cancel it and call it a
Right?
day.
You can't
You
return the
know,
house. Like that's
can't
it.
return the house. That's it. And to sell a house, it costs you realtor fees, transfer taxes, attorney fees, state
Yeah.
fees, city fees if you're in, the 5 boroughs. So, it's always important to make sure that when you're purchasing, you really are with someone that could explain everything to you, make sure that everything is where you want it, not where they want it, and just not the person that just sells you the dream and that doesn't really tell you, all the negatives and the positives, and just break it down for you because that's what you deserve, in my
Yeah.
opinion,
I
and
mean,
everyone
I've had
deserves.
some people like they end up loving me. One person told me she's like, "Oh my gosh, like I feel like you're closer to me than my sister." Because like I get very personal with my clients too. Because when
Right.
you're moving, it's something that's caused you to move. You didn't just off a whim decide that you want to move. At the same time, some people
Right.
don't like me because they say I'm too honest. Some people say I'm too unfiltered and I'm not doing what they want. It's like, but what you want doesn't make sense and it's not in your best interest because here's the situation, and it's like you hired me to kind of give you professional advice. Now, if you don't like the advice, you don't like the advice, but you're gonna be mad at me for not doing my job.
Yeah, well, I always tell people, people lie, numbers don't, and that's why I always get into the
Yep.
numbers. And it's really important, just because, again, it's the most important part of the process is just the numbers, payments, cost, and things like that. One of the good thing about, with our bank, which I really, it's important to me because when someone's purchasing a home, they don't want to take on extra costs. We tell all our
Oh
clients
yeah.
there's no broker fees with us, there's no middleman fees. We do everything in-house. We process. We underwrite. We literally, you've been to our office. I mean, we try to
Yeah,
keep
your office is
everything.
2 doors down from mine. It's great.
Yes, pretty much. We literally 2 buildings down, and we're like one big family, and that's important because I'm all about relationship building, and when all this pandemic happened, a lot of people, it felt great because I've had so many calls from so many of my past clients just to see how my family's doing, and a couple of them, why they would just call me to say hello. We were just talking, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they were like, "So what's the current rates?" And we started talking, and then all of a sudden, we just figured out that we could refinance them and save them a ton of money a month. So just
Yeah.
having that relationship just worked out to them being able to save 200, 400. One of them saved $700 a month.
Wow.
So yeah, that
And that's
was
from the
awesome.
that's probably what from the PMI because PMI is a couple $100 on the mortgage when you buy
So
first time
correct.
home.
So yeah,
Ooh, David, you just went out.
sorry about that.
Okay, there you go.
Yep, sorry, someone was calling me. So right now I have a lot of clients who are calling me and asking me if they could refinance to get rid of their FHA mortgage. A lot of people bought a home last year, 2 years ago, three, whatever the case may be, even 6 months ago, and the values of the homes creeped up a little bit, and they paid it down a
Especially
little
in
bit.
Brooklyn.
Oh, especially. I mean, pretty much, yeah. Nassau, Suffolk, a lot. I have a client that called me in Valley Stream. She bought a house for, um, 395, 390, and now it's worth close to 600,000. I'm refinancing her, and I'm giving her, about $75,000 in cash because she wants to invest in another property in a few months and things like that. But the cool thing is I gave her all that money, and I was able to actually save her a couple $100 a month with giving her that money because of the fact that,
Wow, that's
like you said,
great.
we dropped off the PMI, which PMI on that type on an FHA mortgage is about $71 for every 100,000 you borrowed, give or take.
Okay.
So if she borrows, let's just say 400,000, just for argument's sake, then you're looking at a $284 a month payment. And then if that goes away, right off the, because 284, if you break it down on a mortgage payment, on a mortgage amount, that probably cost you about $60,000 on of a loan, right? Because it's about 450 to 500 without PMI for every $100,000 you borrow.
Okay.
So for about $300 a month, that's about $60,000. So right off the bat, she was able to get that. Then on top of that, her interest rate dropped down about 3/4 of a point. So she was able to get the benefit of using the equity of the home,
Mhm.
save some money, and be able to get into a conventional loan, even though she went into an FHA mortgage. I even have a client
That's
right now that's, God willing, closing. I'm just waiting for something to happen with his SEMA documents, where he's going to refinance from an FHA loan to a conventional loan just because he wants to purchase another home. And you could only have one FHA mortgage at a time unless your job
right.
relocates you, or unless you're expanding family and a couple other guidelines. And I'm refinancing him to a conventional loan to keep his FHA free, so that in a few months from now or whenever, next month maybe, he's then able to purchase another home with a primary residence FHA 3.5% down payment and take advantage of a low down payment, just like he
Yes.
did with the current property that he did, and that property yields him. He rents out his parking garage, the parking spots, and